My ambition, und, yay. Mm-mm.
I feel like I've forgotten how to do this.
Oh no, I never forget because madness is just me.
Well, I know that. Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to my
Welcome back.
ambition.
It's Alex.
And Tiffany. Today, guys, we've got Kate. She is in the building, and it's actually a special day for you guys, for Kate. I'll tell you guys a little bit more in a second. So, Kate Rainford-Foakes, welcome to my ambition.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Love it.
Hi, Kate.
So, Kate previously worked for Chanel, and she currently partners with ambitious female leaders to navigate career transitions with confidence, authenticity, and impact. She was actually, drumroll, included in the Small Business 100, which is a list of the most inspiring businesses in 2025. Kate is a mom of two, and it's also a 10 years wedding anniversary today. Woohoo!
Made it.
Hi, Kate.
We won't ask you for any sort of marriage advice or anything, don't worry. We'll focus on ambition.
Nothing to do, just head down.
I thought a fun place to start actually, Chanel. Not Chanel. See, I've done it. I'm calling you Chanel. Can't stop thinking Chanel. Let me get it out of my system.
You did say it was a huge part of your identity, so maybe you just want to be called Chanel instead.
Tell us a bit more about that, because obviously I know that, every girl wants it. Maybe most girls want a Chanel bag. I certainly do. So tell us a bit more about your time there.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I spent most of my corporate career at Chanel in the fragrance and beauty team. And I kind of fell into it, really. It wasn't that luxury goods was my end kind of destination, but I was blinded by the brilliant brand name. And it is an absolutely stunning brand. And a wonderful company to work for. So I joined in the HR team. I spent a few years doing this and that and kind of worked my way up the ranks. I had a really, really supportive boss who kind of really took a chance on me and gave me a maternity cover position when I had absolutely zero experience for it. And I really kind of learned on the job. And I absolutely loved it. It was super creative. I worked across sales, various kind of communications and marketing areas within the kind of commercial team, and lots of events, and makeup was sort of everywhere, and it was just a really, really fun time. Worked with some amazing teams, particularly fantastic women, but I always knew that kind of something else was out there for me. I loved my job, the product was amazing, but it got to the point where that sort of wasn't really enough for me, and I wanted to test myself in different ways, and that wasn't really kind of an articulated thought at all. And sort of alongside this, there was a lot of fun. It was a really fun company to work for, and there were obviously some brilliant perks as part of that as well. Brilliant staff sales over the years. I don't think they're probably quite the same anymore, but with some amazing times 15 years ago. Definitely handbags at dawn. And I realised kind of as I went through my career that there was something else for me, something with a bit more heart and maybe meaningful to me. So I retrained as a yoga teacher and did that for a bit, kind of alongside my corporate role. And it was pretty hardcore. I didn't really, Chanel didn't really leave a lot of time for other stuff in my life. And I think kind of quite a lot of women feel the same. Like, how on earth do I start to think about what else is out there for me when I'm in this really sort of, full on job? I'm traveling. I've got late night calls. I've got sales targets to meet. You've got all this stuff, the budgets to manage. Where's the headspace for you, and to kind of reassess at any point, am I on the right track, or am I just on a track that happened to be the one I picked 10 years ago, and my ambition and my definition of success was quite different. So yes, Chanel, I ended up working as head of retail development and head of national accounts, and it was absolutely brilliant. But there came a point with motherhood and COVID where it gave me that time to pause and think, how can I kind of realign what I'm doing for the next 20, 30 years of my career with what really matters to me. And it wasn't lipsticks and perfume ultimately for me. And, whilst the people I worked with were amazing, I realized that I didn't want to go any further on that ladder, that the next step up wasn't for me. And the way I kind of talk to my clients about this kind of career pivot point is, imagine yourself in 20 years' time. If you're still doing what you're doing now and you've progressed in that same direction, how will you feel about that? Like, looking back from a different perspective. And for me, when I took that look backwards, I realized that I would be probably a little bit annoyed with myself for not seeing what else was out there and not trying a greater variety of things. And it's also about the impact that I wanted to have on the world around me and the people around me, and to really see what I was capable of in that department. So that's kind of the moments and the thought process that led up to me thinking, right, this isn't for me long term. What's next?
And you're so right about that headspace, that's a really difficult thing for people to find. And you said it when we were talking before the call about Chanel becoming a big part of your identity as well, and how just to take that step back and think about it. So did motherhood, was that a really big driver in you kind of reassessing your values? I mean, I know COVID did a big one on everyone, but was motherhood like the real catalyst for that?
Most definitely. It was a point at which I really had to grow up. I couldn't just, carry on not being in the driving seat of my career. And I really took that time on maternity leave to have that real talk with myself and think, is this really it? And if not, God, I really better start thinking about what is, because it makes you realize that time passes. I think becoming a parent makes you realize time passes, and you've got to make the most of it. And if I've got 20, 30 years left in my career, I can't just let that happen to me. I need to be in the driving seat myself and make conscious decisions. And I think I used to think I was, classic good girl, I think, behavior growing up. So, kept my head down in school, and I really subscribed to the thought process that if you keep your head down and you do a great job, you're going to get noticed and you're going to go far. And actually, while that works to an extent, it's not going to kind of set the world on fire.
Yeah.
And, I always sort of needed that external validation to say, yes, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track. And that wasn't making me happy. I wanted to do it, feel like I was doing it myself. And my husband runs his own business and has done now for 10 years, coincided with our marriage, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. Still here and still thriving. So
let's deep dive that.
Yeah, it's not our wedding anniversary, it's for the anniversary of his business. And for my sins, I looked at what he was doing and thought, I want me a piece of that. He can look at this business that he's created and say, I did that, and feel super proud of what he's achieved. And I saw how he grew and developed massively over that process. And there was part of me thinking, I can do that. I want to do that. I want to be a big cog in a smaller wheel and see what I'm really capable of achieving. But there wasn't the time and space to do it. And to answer your question, yes, I realized when I had my first baby that I wasn't going to be able to work in the same way and parent in the way that I wanted to parent. And that was really kind of brought to the fore with my second child, when I thought, I can't do the traveling with work that I used to do, and I can't really give the job probably what it needs to take the job to the next level. So all these things kind of combined to make me think, this is the time. It's really now or never. I either go all in with my career at Chanel, or it's time to really step out my comfort zone and step into the unknown and try something completely new. And that was tough. That was definitely not an easy process.
No, I think it's I think there's so many things you mentioned. I think I'd love to kind of peel back a bit. I think where we kind of got to now is that kind of identity reconstruction. This idea that motherhood's an opportunity to actually maybe, even though it feels as if it's not the time to stop and sit down because that's the last thing that you can do, it's actually an opportunity for women to just take a moment. Because in that time you realize that, okay, you've got a child now, less time, maybe your priorities shifted. And also there's more to life than maybe perhaps just a career. It's now more about the meaning, and even though you were in a good, comfortable job, you realize that perhaps there was more that you can hang on to that, because when you decided to look at your life from the end of your life, you didn't want to look back with regrets. So I think it's interesting now, motherhood in itself presents an opportunity to reconstruct things, and it's almost kind of go into the chaos and let it kind of overtake you, and then allow it to then force you to sit down and rethink some things. Because I've often thought about how, have I lost myself? But actually, no, I'm just in a different stage. I'm a work in progress, raising other works in progress. And that's not a bad thing. I think sometimes that is scary, but I would hope that with my ambition, and exactly how you put it, it's an opportunity for women to kind of just stop it's just forced you to stop, get off that, that corporate ladder for a bit and just take a moment and really think, because things have changed, right? We can't lie that we now have other things going on and bigger things, and it's just time to think. And for some women, it's I actually want to stay where I am, and that's perfect if you decide that with intention. And I think I love that you've kind of put that all together. But also, I think what I think you are saying also is that there's a price to pay. You had to pay the price of losing that kind of maybe the prestige of working with Chanel and kind of pulling that back to going back to Kate. And that must have been quite daunting, almost like I got to start now, but with me, and then work from there. And I think that's something we miss in stories of, people who do well or people who step into intention. I'd love to know what did you think you had to let go of or kind of lose? Because I think sometimes people need to kind of talk about that so other people can know that if they're also peeling things back on themselves, it's not a bad place to be. It's just starting again and having to then build back up.
I think you've put that so beautifully.
Thank you.
So well, particularly the idea of reconstruction. And I work with a lot of clients actually who, and one in particular, described how she was feeling as she felt like when she had a child and all her feelings about her career, she felt like the puzzle that was her had been completely exploded. Yeah. And now she was at a point where she had to work out how to put the puzzle pieces back together, but the picture was completely different. And I felt that so deeply when she shared that with me. And it's so true. When you step away from an identity that's been yours for a long time, whether that's a corporate identity or it could be a relationship, it could be anything. When you step away from that, it's a scary moment because so much of identity is intertwined to other things in our lives. And specifically for me, yes, I was so tied to my identity that a lot of my friends called me Chanel Kate, which is completely ridiculous.
I think it's quite a cool nickname, though,
I think it is. I'll take it.
That's probably worse. Yeah, that's probably worse.
It's better than Primark Kate, isn't it? Or like something like that.
Yeah, well, maybe. But yeah, you're right. There's this sort of social currency that comes with what do you do? And it's one of the first questions you get asked in social situations. What is it you do? Not like, who are you as a person and what's meaningful to you, but what do you do for a job? Which is so funny, isn't it? Because that's really only a tiny part of who we are. But yeah, rather than saying, I'm Kate, I work for Chanel, which absolutely comes with some prestige, I suddenly was like, well, I'm Kate, I'm on maternity leave and I'm not going back to my previous role. And when I started stepping into my new role as a coach, wow, did I have trouble saying I'm Kate and I'm an executive coach, because I felt like such an imposter. Like, was everyone going to laugh at me? Was everyone going to, think, how ridiculous she thinks she can do something different? And that it came with such a huge amount of emotional baggage that I really wasn't expecting. But traveling through that transition has helped me so much to help the women that I now work with. I only work with women. I work with women at mainly 3 points in their careers, one of which is after maternity leave, thinking, who am I now? What do I want to do with my life? The second tends to be a few years into motherhood where the dust has settled and now they kind of see, all right, my career is stretching ahead of me. I don't think it's what I want, or I really need to reassess it and work out how I get it back into gear. And thirdly, it's women who are stepping into really senior roles. So it tends to be these 3 sets of women that I work with who, and it does come down to identity, because often for the senior women stepping into, sometimes CEO roles or board roles, there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes with that. And imposter syndrome isn't necessarily a term that I love, but it does encapsulate that feeling of, do I deserve to be here? And will I get found out for not being good enough? And that feeling of...
It's going to say the found out feeling is the big one, isn't it? Like people are going to know I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, but it comes with it whenever we start something new. There's a concept of comfort circle or comfort zones. And the only way to grow your comfort zone is to step out of it and step into that stretch zone. And suddenly you realize that the thing that was scaring you isn't so scary anymore. And for me, that was not hiding behind a brand anymore. I couldn't hide behind Chanel. I never spoke for myself before. I was always speaking on behalf of the brand. It was always the brand's opinions. But now I set myself up as Kate Rainford coaching, and there was nowhere to hide. And I had to really embody that and say, oh, this is what I think, and these are my views. And that didn't come overnight. That took a lot of, soul searching, self-reflection. It really took a long time to really kind of work out, who am I now, not 10 years ago, and my definition of success was very, very different. And what do I want to stand for going forward? What difference do I want to make? What's my impact going to be? And how am I going to get there? Still a work in progress, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. As you've been talking, I've been thinking a little bit about motherhood as almost like a wake-up call from like sleepwalking through your career. And almost that people talk about the disadvantages of motherhood, but actually that is a big advantage, and it's maybe one that men don't get on such a frequent basis by taking that step out of their career. And we look at the motherhood penalty, all of those difficult things that come with motherhood, but actually viewing it as an opportunity to get really clear on what you want. And maybe that's something you see in the women that you coach, that actually motherhood is a real opportunity to align what you do in your work more closely with what you want from life. Because I think it is very, very easy to sleepwalk up the ladder, get into a career and continue climbing without really giving it much thought, just because it's the next step and the next step. And like you say about the kind of good girl thing that we're all conditioned to, it's about being grateful and about taking the next step. But actually motherhood's that opportunity to go, is this what I want? So is that something that you're seeing more with women now? It seems to be the more women I speak to about their careers, the more common it seems that women are thinking, no, this isn't what I want, or I'm going to pivot or change.
Yeah, I think absolutely that. It brings the whole picture into really sharp clarity, doesn't it? Because suddenly you've got kind of more mental space maybe to think, but your actual time becomes so much more limited. Certainly when you're on maternity leave, you're super busy, you're suddenly focused on the immediacy of caring for this tiny child. But your brain has this kind of, once you're through the immediate fog, suddenly starts to go, oh, right, okay, what does this mean for me? And how am I going to make what was before work for me going forwards? And certainly that comes to practical matters as well, doesn't it? How am I going to make maybe my busy corporate job work with how I want to do a school run? Is that going to be practical? And if not, who does the school run? All these things start to become more important. So I would say, yes, absolutely. But it also means, from a practical basis, you're forced to really think really clearly about, is this going to work for me? And if not, how do I make it work? Because you don't want to shoehorn yourself into a box. I think that's sadly what some women end up doing, thinking, I'm just going to take this role. I can't find a career or a job at the level that I was at before that allows me to work in the way that I want to work, so that I can parent in the way that I want to parent. And that's something I come across so much with women. I run a leadership group locally to me in person once a month, and so many women, are at that point where they think, well, I really want to take a different step that allows you more present at home, but there's no part-time roles at the same level. So I've been pay cut in seniority. Why is that? Why can't we do a job differently and make it work for us? So yeah, there has to be a different solution in that respect, I think. And I see so many women coming out with brilliant ideas and tons of ambition, but suddenly lacking the time, the work hours to kind of put their ideas in, to life, essentially.
I do love a good frame, and we've actually had someone else mention Ikigai, but I'd love to know from your perspective how that led to you, being where you are today, because I think it'll be useful for the listeners to kind of maybe put their lives in that frame as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of Ikigai is a Japanese concept, and essentially it helps you look at what you're doing through four frames, four kind of circles essentially that overlap. So the first one is what is it that you love? Find something that you really love to do, and something that you're good at. So something that you're talented at or you can learn. And then thirdly, it's something that the world needs. So is there a requirement for what it is you're doing or you're bringing? And fourthly, can you make some money out of it? Is that going to work for you? And that's really kind of the golden circle in the middle where all those 4 circles overlap, and that would be your Ikigai. I think I'm really lucky to have found it, and I never ever thought I would. When I was in my corporate career, I never thought I would get to a point where I feel like I'm kind of hitting all those buttons. And it does bring a real sense of fulfillment, because I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. I love the people I work with, and it helps me kind of develop and grow every day as well, which is amazing. But the way I kind of got to that from the corporate jump to what I'm doing now wasn't an easy step. On maternity leave, I was thinking to myself, what is it that I want to do next? So I think I want to start a business, but is it interior design? And thank God I didn't go down the interior design route, because that's not my jam. And then I really look back, and I encourage my clients to look back over the moments they felt most like themselves in their career. Wow. So what has really made them feel like, yes, I'm getting so much fulfillment and happiness and really joy out of what it is I'm doing. And for me, it was working with, well, 2 things. Firstly, it was working with brilliant women and seeing women on my team really step into what they're capable of and love it as well, from going from a place of lacking in confidence to seeing really what they could achieve. And secondly, during my time at Chanel, we ran an initiative, sort of world first initiative, called the Chanel School of Makeup, which was so fun, and we got to really create it from scratch. And alongside that, I also ran the Chanel beauty boutiques, the fragrance and beauty boutiques, and that kind of sense of entrepreneurship and ownership and creativity. I knew I wanted to hit those buttons in what I did next, so that really meant working for myself and creating something new. And when you're working for yourself, only a tiny part of that is actually delivering the service that you deliver. There's so much around that involving marketing, sales, the whole kit and caboodle that I had to learn from scratch, really, which was really tough, but also really exciting.
Wow. I'd love to talk a bit about the integration piece, because I think I often think about this idea of balance, and I'm like, no, it's not still balance. I mean, I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I know there's been weeks where, for example, we think we've got some routine, and then my daughter's a little bit unsettled with nursery, and I've got to go with Nana to drop her off, and then suddenly, I'm now adding that to my kind of daily to do. And then that week, that's not, balanced week. So I certainly subscribe to integration. How old are your children, Kate? Just to
my girl is 5, my boy is just
3. Okay. Because I think this will be useful. I'd love to hear kind of your take on it in terms of, and I'll give you another example. So I love fitness, and obviously as soon as I had a second child, that wasn't going to happen. Like, going to the gym was a luxury. I just couldn't do. Like, going to the gym, having a shower, coming back, that was just too much time. So I remember
having a shower.
No, I mean, adding that. It's a thing, because you've got to go to the gym, then shower,
then the gym as well.
That's what I'm saying. And by the time you get back home, and I realized I didn't have that hour anymore that I used to do. So now, when my daughter was born, I used to go to the park. I bought a pair of like a resistance band, and whilst my son was playing, my daughter was sleeping in the pushchair. I was doing jumping squats. And
Tiffany's a bit out there, Kate, in case you hadn't picked that up.
I had to do what I had to do. No, it helps my sanity. Look,
I've seen the videos of this
in a clinic somewhere. I'm not even kidding. So for me, I realized that motherhood is integration. It's like, okay, everyone's at the park in nature. The kids, my son's playing. I'm also doing something for me. So I think that's what led me to kind of see it as kind of living in 2 worlds consistently. So there's no balance. It's just integration is, how can they be, I don't know, having a little snack over there, and I'm here doing squats in the house. So I'd love to hear how you kind of incorporate on a day-to-day basis, just things that you need to do versus what you need to do as a mum. I don't know if you have any examples of how you do that, so that for anyone listening and kind of thinking, oh, I'm not balanced and I'm making a mess of it, just to know that we're just all trying to juggle these things, really.
Oh, completely. And firstly, I wish I was doing squats in the house. No,
I've lost my mind.
I'm the lazy one on this podcast. There's no squats happening over here. But I feel quietly shamed every time Tiffany talks about fitness. I'm like, oh yeah, me too.
Stop it.
Yeah, my fitness regime went out the window over summer holidays completely. And actually it's interesting you brought this up, because balance is something that a lot of clients come to me for, and the first thing to talk about is there's no such thing as balance. It's complete fallacy.
It's a myth, isn't
Complete
it?
myth. You're never going to get there, and if you try your best to get there, you'll probably end up feeling like you're failing the whole time.
Yeah.
And so don't set yourself up for a fall. I love the word you use. Integration is 100% what we're aiming for. Feeling like we can be ourselves across all parts of our lives. And when I talk to my clients about this, we often look at it, in terms of a whole week. Do they feel they've had that sense of being in the right place at the right time across the week? And we often, there's this thing I talk about called the presence paradox, which is when I didn't feel it before becoming a mum, and you might relate to this. When you are in one place, say you're at work, you're thinking, oh, I should really be at home. And when you're at home with your kids, you're thinking, oh, I really should be writing that email, doing a bit more work. And you never feel like you're in the right place at the right time. Certainly that was my experience. I always felt this pull from different parts of my life. And obviously you can't be everywhere at once. So at some point, you're going to have to find a way to make peace with the presence paradox. And I think integration is probably the solution to that. And for me, just to give you an example of my summer, I didn't have much childcare over the summer, and I thought to myself, great, yeah, I've got both my children at home. I can definitely work on my business over the summer and keep everything going. No problem. Truth was, surprise, surprise, that was pretty much impossible. And the bits I got done were kind of round the edges in the evenings. And at first, I was like, oh, so frustrated. I had this really visceral frustration because I wanted to work my business. I wanted to keep things going whilst feeling like I was really present for my children. And then I realized, no, Kate, hang on, this is your decision. I've decided to work in this way. I've decided not to put them into more childcare over the summer months because I wanted that time to with them. One of the reasons I started my own business was to have some of the holidays off. So, lean into that. Like, why am I not thinking this is my choice? And as soon as I realized it was my choice, I relaxed. But it's about your intention. Are you intending to do the thing that you're doing right now? If not, change it. But if you're intending to do it and you've made that plan, go with it. Don't feel any guilt. Don't feel any pull to be somewhere else in your life. You've created this regime or routine or the way your kind of day shifts and moves. If it's working for you, go with it. If it's not, let's think about how we can tweak it to change it. Certainly for me, like completely truthfully, exercise has fallen completely off the bandwagon with lack of sleep, school starts, no routine over summer months. And that's okay. I think you've got to give yourself some grace for an area of your life to kind of slide. That's normal. There's no way you can keep all the plates spinning in the air at the same time. And when I start working with a new client, I often look at something called a wheel of life. I don't know if you're familiar with a wheel of life.
Yeah, I've seen it before. Yeah.
It's where you really assess the different parts of your life and you look at where you feel you're at with those areas of your life on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, this is amazing. I couldn't get any better in this area of my life. And 1 being, couldn't get any worse. And then you start to see the pattern across how the different parts of your life are feeling for you right now. And it is more of a feeling than anything else. And that's where the integration comes in. Are the different parts of your life working for you in the right way? And the reality is, at some point, you've got to get comfortable with bits of your life dipping in certain ways, because there's no way you can keep everything going at the same time on a 10. It's just not physically possible. You'd pop. So I think that's a really helpful tool to help you kind of get a grip on, okay, how is my life feeling right now? And what areas maybe need more attention? And where can I dial it down?
I liked what you said about this idea of choosing and then knowing that because you've chose it, make peace with your choices. I think that's so powerful because I think I've often thought about like, what will you choose to fail at? And I know failure sounds like quite a strong word, so maybe substitute that with what will you feel to be less off somewhere. Like, for example, and I've done that, like cooking. Like, I'm not even trying to, I don't want to get to end of my life and my children say, Mom was a good cook. Like, I don't think I will get anything from that. And I don't want them to say, Mommy was very good at cleaning the house either. I'm actually okay with them maybe saying, Mommy wasn't so great in those areas, but we got good food. We had vegetables, we had a good balanced meal. So I think once you make peace of that, then perhaps you're better at then kind of, giving that to someone else or subcontracting it or getting a cleaner and, paying a company to cook meals or buying frozen food that's healthy-ish, or prepping something simple. But yeah, I do think there's an idea of like knowing that you can't be everything, but choosing those things because then, like you said, you can look at where you're at overall, and rather than feel like I'm failing at this, it's actually no, I chose that, and there's peace in my initial decision. There's peace in what I said back
So which
then.
areas are good enough?
Yeah.
Like, which areas is it fine to just not quite half-ass, but just do the minimum? So yeah, totally get you, Tiffany, on that.
Yeah, and I think you've got to choose, don't you, really, as mothers, because there's cleaning. I think I was thinking about mother, being a mother, being a wife, being a sister, being a friend. There's quite a lot of roles that kind of going in between, and it's really hard to stay on top of it, especially when to children, we're almost everything, especially when they're little.
Yeah, and actually, to your point of where are you choosing, I think that what's helpful with that concept is thinking about your values, and they can change hugely when you become a mum. Sometimes they're the same, but often there's a real shift to it, and it's great to start exploring where are your values now. So what's important to you? Is it, you have a value of, I don't know, it could be achievement. Well, what does that actually mean? It's a word, but it's going to mean something different to you to what it does to me. So writing out what your definition of achievement really means, so you're really clear on what your value is. You could have a definition of family. Well, what does that mean? Is it family time? Is it feeling like you're present in a specific way? Is it reading to your child? And what does that value mean to you? And for one of my clients, it actually comes to mind, she was doing really well in her career. Before becoming a mum, she was a real career woman, like absolutely gave everything to her job, loved it, got so much fulfillment out of it. And then she had a child and she was like, oh, something's off. And she couldn't work out what it was. And we did the values exercise and a wheel of life assessment of how she was feeling about different areas, and she couldn't quite get to it. And then eventually she realized that she had a really deep desire to feel like she was providing, you talk about food, she wanted to feel like she was providing something for her family, and she was feeling some kind of discomfort with not cooking. And for her, we kind of peeled back the layers, and for her that was really important. So she managed to tick that box for her by doing one home cooked meal a week. So for her, that was sustainable, that was achievable, she felt good about that. And that was it. And it sounds so simple, but it was like an itch for her. She was like, something's not right. I feel like there's a real discomfort in an area. And it was just about really unpeeling what does the value of, I can't remember exactly what her value was, but it could have been home, for example. What does that mean? And yeah, she wanted to do all the things. She wanted to do all the cleaning. She wanted to be completely this like wonderful housewife and have this incredible career. Time obviously doesn't always allow those things to happen, nor should it. But when we peel back the onion of what would tick that box for her, what would kind of really scratch that itch, we uncovered this really simple thing that would make her feel so much more fulfilled in that area of her life. So it can be practical, and that was for her. It's not the same for everybody. It's different for everyone.
Yeah,
I
not
like
for
how
me.
practical that is as well.
It's so true. Isn't it? Cook one meal. It's funny how you can drive this kind of sense of uneasiness once you obviously take the evaluation into one thing. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, because I think we can get in that trap of thinking, like, if it's around cooking, that it's got to be a fresh meal that I've cooked every day, and like really take it to the nth degree, rather than think, actually, if I do this once a week, will that be enough? Is that the thing that's going to make me happy?
Yeah.
And like I'm like it is what I said before about like what is the level of good enough that you're willing to accept there, and like that doing that once a week, regardless of what happens the rest of the week, is enough to make you feel fulfilled.
And it is
it's really great.
It comes down to how you feel. And I think it's the same with anything. If you're starting something new, if you're pivoting to a completely new career, sometimes that's about baby steps. So, how can you make it work around your current job, for example? Is there something you can do that will help you get that runway before you need to take the leap? I think we've talked before the show about, financially, obviously finding that fulfillment in your career is a big concern financially for many women, because it doesn't always match up. And that's a big scary step for a lot of people to take. But are there tiny ways where you can start to get either insight into a different career, or start to take tiny, tiny steps to your dream role, your dream career, whilst maintaining some sort of financial security? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be a little bit at a time.
I think that's super helpful for people listening, because there might be people out there who kind of want to take that step and pivot. But if you've got that safety net of a job and a salary, it is quite scary to step away from that, isn't it? So the idea that they can do that in smaller steps without making the full leap, yeah, I think is really helpful to anyone who's thinking about it. You don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah, completely. And making a financial plan around that is really helpful. It's sometimes a lot of my clients who are considering a career pivot, you know, we work on how that could work for them financially. I'm definitely not a financial advisor, but we set them the objective of getting their finances in order, thinking, well, if I was to make this jump, realistically, am I going to be earning something? If it's my own business, for example, am I going to be earning in the first few months? If not, how can I secure myself and be, you know, cut my cloth accordingly or make some cuts elsewhere? Is it realistic for me to do this? And if so, practically, how am I going to do it? And that can be such a scary step. And even the thought of doing that often puts people off. So having, you know, someone to kind of hold your hand through that process and get you thinking about the things that you to consider can be super, super helpful.
Yeah. And I think what I've also kind of been thinking about is I'm a little bit surprised at how ambitious I am for my children. I think that's kind of scared me a little bit as well. This idea that I didn't think I'd be like Mother Nature or anything, but I a big part of my life is kind of like their ambitions for them, and kind of like, okay, don't get me wrong, I'm very ambitious, but I know if I get to the end of my life and I've kind of thrown everything to my ambition and I didn't really intentionally think about them and, you know, how I'm using my time to shape them and do that intentionally and maybe lose out on some things I want, I know I'd regret it. And that's something that's been an important frame for me that I've definitely seen now, that, you know, how can I take my ambition for my children and also use that intentionally? Because, you know, I've mentioned a few times, losing my mom when I was quite young makes me realize, personally anyway, that motherhood is not, you know, it's an opportunity. And that doesn't mean it's not tiring. That doesn't mean I'm not on my like 10th coffee today. That doesn't mean I'm like, I mean, look at the bags in my eye. But it's just this idea that I'm now
nothing about mine.
Don't say nothing. But like, I keep thinking about like how, because I think sometimes it's scary to actually say that, yes, I want something for myself, but also want to think about my children and what will develop them, because that's important. You know, we're bringing up the next generation. I often think sometimes you need that space and time to look at your children, because, you know, you observe them, I notice things about my children that now I think, oh my God, like that's such incredible information that will help them. You know, my son it seems to like running. So I've started taking him running. And again, it's finding time to do that. I've recently signed him up for Scouts. My daughter is so artistic and loves dancing. I'm looking at a dancing class for her. And I think sometimes even that in itself, it's like, okay, how can we, I suppose the question is, how do we explore our ambitions for our children alongside our own? And I think, again, that's just another additional thing, right? But it sounds like from your perspective, it's all about like the intention and understanding if that's a thing for you and how you can use that, right? And do something about it.
Yeah, well, so interesting to hear. And I think so often that's a full-time job, isn't it? Thinking about what's going to develop them, what's the right balance.
Playtime. How do we organize playtime for their friends so that they're comfortable in nursery or reception?
It is a whole other world. You've got a whole other brain that's required to think about all this stuff, I think. I think certainly it's about following their interests and having time to kind of research right clubs. You've got to research what's the right balance of I fill up my daughter's after school every single day and you got to think this probably isn't the best thing for her. And then you speak to the teachers at school and they're like, actually they really need is time to climb trees, because that helps develop the stability to, I was at a session last night at my daughter's school. Apparently climbing trees and playing outdoors helps them develop the stability, the core stability to be able to sit right. Aware of. And like planting their feet on the floor and learning how to sit properly rather than dangling their feet off the dining room chair is so important.
Lying on your tummy, that's my son's favourite position.
Apparently. It's really great for their core and developing those sort of kind of muscles. So more of that. I'm definitely digressing here, but I'm absolutely thinking about how to set them up for the future is so important. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been thinking a lot recently about how the world of work is going to change for them. You know, I went to uni, I got a degree, and that was a prerequisite to getting a job. You know, they were looking for a tick box on my CV, that degree. I don't think that's going to be required going forward necessarily. It obviously depends on the role. So what is going to set them up for success when they're ready to kind of enter the world of work, and how can they use their talents to kind of support them when the world is going to be powered by AI and who knows what's going to come out in the next 10, 15 years. And these are big questions.
So sorry to interrupt, Kate. I was thinking, but then I think that's more evidence for us then to kind of be more intentional, because I think a lot of it is modeling. I don't think it's telling them. I think a lot of times we're thinking, oh, I'm not present enough, I'm not talking to them enough, I'm not looking them in the eye enough. But I think children learn by observing and modeling. And perhaps this rebellious, taking time to think about what we want as human beings, non-selfishly, because being a mom is just a non-selfish thing. You can't even help it. I mean, I feed them if I feed myself. But I do think that perhaps this modeling of this rebellious integration in the middle, living my life in the chaos, it's good for them. They're seeing that it doesn't have to be perfect. They're seeing that you can rewrite the rules. They're seeing that perhaps you can do something around nap times and snack times. They're seeing that when intention is there, life is possible. And I just think maybe that's maybe that's the point of it, rather than thinking we need to look at them and you know what I mean? Like this kind of presence, if you're not there all the time, looking at them, picking them up, don't take them to nursery because they need their mother. So I do think society does kind of sends this toxic messages that makes us feel as if by trying to juggle it, we're just off balance, or we're going to, kind of like ruin their lives because we're not there. And I just think it's what we're showing them.
You're so right, because I know that I'm a better mum when I'm doing the things for myself. I know I'm a better mum when I go to a yoga class or go out for a run or find insane levels of fulfillment through building my own business and thinking, wow, I've done something completely new today that was really outside my comfort zone and I did it. Like that is so much more valuable because I can then bring that into the presence I have with my children and teach them in ways that I wouldn't otherwise be able to teach them. Not even necessarily consciously, but it will come into everything that I'm doing with my kids. That I'm a more fulfilled person through following my own ambition and doing things for me that make me a healthier, happier human being. I think that's so
and like a better role model as well. And when you're talking about the way their careers will change, seeing that you can work flexibly, that you can kind of have a bit of a squiggly career as well, because I think that's what they're going to have. I think seeing people be able to pivot and do different things, they're all the kind of examples that they almost going to need for their whatever their future careers are they're going to do that maybe don't exist yet.
Yeah, and it's mental, isn't it? Because 30 years ago, success was linear. You got a good job, specifically for men, you
climbed the ladder,
and if you were there for your whole career, then brilliant, fantastic, final salary, pension, all that kind of stuff. And now it's a completely different world, and our definitions of success change, so frequently depending on what stage of life we're at. And we have it's almost a luxury to be able to reinvent yourself and to be able to think, this isn't the right path for me, I'm going to change it up and do something different. So the ability to do that, and as you said, to take motherhood as this real opportunity to pause and reassess, am I on a path that's right for me, or do I need to change something up? I think that's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really inspiring. And I think one thing I observe about you, Kate, as well, is that you're super agentic. I don't know if you've thought about that. I think you are. I think this idea that, life, I know it sounds really cliche, but listen, life is what you make of it. If I don't do it, no one else is. I'm taking control of my life. And I think that's really inspiring, because I think, I don't know, life happens, right? Things happen outside of our control, and we're trying to navigate this. And it sounds to me like you've gone from a journey of kind of, I don't know, like going through the script, but now you're rewriting it. And that's quite scary. But I can sense that from you, like you've kind of got to the point where you realize that I've looked at my life 20 years further in the line, and this is what I want. And I think that's really refreshing, and that's actually inspiring me to kind of rethink a lot of things. And I don't know, this idea of just doing it now, even if it's scary, even if it's, not fully planned. But yeah, I get that from you.
That's completely right. And thank you for saying that. But it is about finding someone, if it's scary, if whatever it is scary, find someone to hold your hand whether that's
Okay.
a friend, a work colleague, a partner,
Okay.
a coach, whoever it is, find someone to hold your hand and reiterate that you can do it and hold you accountable. Because once you take the first step and you repeat and repeat and repeat, you'll realize it's not that scary. And actually, that's where the magic happens. That's where growth comes in. And I talk about stuff now when I coach on leadership principles that I didn't know when I started out.
Okay.
I didn't have leadership coaching, but things like, especially for women, advocating for yourself, talking about your achievements. I came on this morning, I told you that I'd achieved this recognition in the Small Biz 100. We're actually told to be humble and to not shout about our achievements for fear of boasting or being unlikable. And there's so much to unpack around that. But we don't PR ourselves.
Come back for part 2.
Exactly, guys. A 3-hour episode.
It's so fascinating. But if we don't PR ourselves, no one else is going to do it for you.
It's true.
You wouldn't have known, you wouldn't have talked about it. And I talk about this stuff all the time with my leadership clients, that you have to ask for what you want. And actually, I talk about it with my child as well. So it's my daughter. She had real difficulty speaking up in the school dinner hall. And so she'd always come out of school saying, "Oh, got mashed potato today, Mummy. It was a real disappointment."
Oh,
I had a real disappointment, Mummy. I had mashed potato. I'm like, "Well, why didn't you say no mashed potato, thank you?" Or she said, I had a real disappointment when I thought it was a chocolate chip cookie, but actually it was raisin. It ruined her entire day.
Oh, I know where she's coming from.
So we talk about asking and the importance of learning from such a young age to ask what you want and need through life, because if you don't, then you're going to get what you don't want. And
100%.
in everyone's career, in everybody's life, ask for what you want. And if you don't, start small. Start with the smallest things.
So, we're from the Northeast, and we've got a saying in the Northeast that is shy Ben's getting out, which is basically like, if you don't ask, you don't get. I've got it on my wall. But very similarly, so when Ted goes to get his haircut, he does not like the hairdryer. He's scared of the hairdryer. But I've taught him to go in there and say to the woman who cuts his hair, "I don't want the hairdryer." And he does that himself, and he has since he was really tiny. And normally he's like bursting in the door, and it's the first thing he says before he says hello. He's like, "I don't want the hairdryer." She might be dealing with someone else, but
she knows now,
he's
in
making
advance.
sure. And then she accidentally used it last time, and he stopped her and said, "No, I don't want the hairdryer." And like, it is amazing to teach them that from a young age, but it's a lesson we need for ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's no good just teaching our kids to do it. We have to do it, and it is hard.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
To do it, but it's so important. And she burst out of school the day, and she said, "Mummy, I've really got something to tell you. I realised that the raisin cookie was a raisin cookie, and I had banana instead." And she was so thrilled. And just seeing these tiny moments in your children where they're learning this lesson that's probably taken me years and years and years to learn, to ask for what I want. But she's embodying it now, and that's something that gives me more satisfaction probably than anything else in parenting, seeing that kind of come to life.
But it's, we can wrap it up, I think we're coming to the end of this. It's this idea that then we're not just raising them, they're raising us. And I think it's moments like that where you see something happening, you realize you're learning as well, or it's this reflection on them. And like I said, it's so much more fulfilling. Again, that thing about asking for what you want, I think even from them, sometimes this idea that if they get something, they should be grateful. And I'm all for being grateful. I'm like, yes, please, thank you. But I'm also teaching them to kind of just being able to say no, share an opinion. I think that's very important, because as they get older, they'll probably lose more of that.
I can hear the child who will definitely advocate for herself arriving home.
Thank you. And she's found my lipstick.
She's going to have no problems with that.
Yeah, my ambition, listen, if it wasn't chaotic, it wouldn't be my ambition. So it was, yes.
Okay,
welcome to my ambition, the child episode. But we'll wrap it up. But I mean, is there anything else, Kate, that you thought you'd love to share with us? I bet there's more, but
there's loads more. But I think it's going to probably leave it for now. But it's such a pleasure to speak to you both, and thank you so much. I really loved being on this morning.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been really, really great talking to you. Where can people find you, Kate?
Yes, you can find me at katerainford.com. my main website, which gives all the information of how you can work with me, and also on LinkedIn at Kate Rainford-Foakes, and on Instagram at Kate Rainford Coaching.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yay.
And I'm just going to do the final little podcasty bit that I haven't forgotten over the summer.
Cringy podcasty. Love it. All
enjoyed
about
this
the cringe.
If you've enjoyed this episode, guys, please share it with somebody. Please follow us. Give us a 5-star review. We only accept 5-star reviews. And as my son Ted would say, please smash the like button.
Smash the like button. Smash the like button. Peace out, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.